Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Potter, and I am the Hope Chautauqua Drug-Free Communities Coalition Project Director. It is with great pleasure that I have the opportunity to introduce our next presenter, my friend and former colleague, Trish Whetstone, who will be presenting What's with Mindfulness Anyways. Trish is a feel-good gut coach, a holistic health specialist, stress expert, intuitive eating advocate. Trish received degrees in psychology and public health from the State University of New York at Fredonia and worked with the nonprofit agency Prevention Works as an educator, coordinator, and director. She then became a certified health, life, and nutrition coach to help herself after years of struggling with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And now she helps others through nutrition, stress management, and lifestyle change so they can feel good in their gut. Catch her co-hosting the podcast, I Scream, You Scream, within the Feel Good Gut Facebook group, on Instagram, and at Feel Good Gut Girl, or visit her website, www.healthcoachingbytrish.com. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Trish.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it. I am super excited to be here today. I am going to share my screen here, and I'm hoping everybody can see my presentation. If my fellow panelists and friends can help me out if there's any technical issues, just let me know. But if you have not met me before or seen one of my talks, I'm Trish Whetstone. I am a certified health, life, and nutrition coach, now with my own personal coaching business. However, I used to work for Prevention Works and work alongside Hope Chautauqua, putting on this conference. So I have plenty of experience with this conference, and I'm super excited to be able to talk on mindfulness today and this topic. And before we get started, I heard a little bit while other providers were speaking today, but I would like to launch a poll, and I would like to just know the participants from you. Why did you decide to participate in the Hope and Healing Conference today? Are you a substance use or human service professional? Maybe you work in the school system, or other. Maybe you're a parent, a student, or a community member. You can let me know in the chat box. I would love to kind of see what our audience is today, so then I could maybe touch on how you could utilize these mindfulness techniques in your work and in the most effective way in your life. Thank you so much to my fellow panelists already on it. Wonderful. Thank you. So let's see, we'll give it maybe another 10 seconds. I just want to get the gist of maybe the majority. If you are answering this for me, I appreciate it. Why did you decide to participate today? Awesome. I see the poll ended. I cannot see the results. Is it possible to see the results? There we go. Okay, so it looks like about over 56% of you listening today are substance use or human service professionals. That is my background, so I absolutely get this. I hope that you can find that these mindfulness techniques can help you in your work, within the community, with your clients, and then also personally as well, because it looks like about 28% are maybe just a community member, a parent, or student yourself. So that is wonderful. I appreciate that. We can close that poll out. And just quickly, I want to share a little bit more about me. So Kelly kind of already went over my spiel. I have degrees in psychology, public health, certifications in coaching as well. And as I mentioned, I was a speaker at past Hope and Healing conferences. You may have seen me last year with co-moderator and facilitator Alexander Rodriguez, talking about current trends, CBD and Kratom. Was a pretty good presentation. I'm hoping I can live up to it today with this talk today on mindfulness, but I have quite a diverse background that helps me understand this, and specific training within my health and nutrition coaching practices on mindfulness as well. Wonderful. I see Cynthia is a recovery coach. Awesome. Nice. Cool, cool. All right. Now, let me know this in the chat box as well, because I can see what we're putting in here. When you hear the word mindfulness, what is the first thing that comes to mind? No judgment here, just put it in. Whatever you think of when you hear mindfulness, whether it's meditation, breathing, Woo woo, that is okay. I want to hear being in the moment, peace, meditation. Wonderful. Yoga, peace, peace. Ooh, that's come up a couple times. Yes. Okay. Oh, I love that. Being aware, here and now, content. Yes. Content, centered and grounded. I love these words. Wow. Awesome. I love it. Okay, that's it. End of our mindfulness presentation. You guys have said it. I'm kidding, but you guys do, you kind of are hitting the nail on the head. And my hope with this presentation today is that we can define mindfulness based on the research, based on the science behind mindfulness, go over a little formula that I've created called PAC, P-A-C, which stands, it's a little acronym with 3 basic words that I think accompany mindfulness that you can always turn to in order to practice mindfulness. But then I hope give you some really tangible ways to practice this, because meditation and yoga might not be for everybody, or you might find that finding your peace differs in the moment and depending on what is happening in your life. So I hope to give you many different ways to practice mindfulness. So thank you all for your participation. All right. Here's mindfulness. The Oxford Dictionary defines it as the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. So y'all are very much on point here with the being aware. And the American Psychological Association defines it as the state of active, open attention to the presence or the present moment. So a lot of you have that down pat as well. Mindfulness is about the here and now. We're going to define this much further, but this is the definition of mindfulness. Now, I think in the health and wellness world, mindfulness is kind of a buzz, and we kind of think that it's synonymous with stress management, but mindfulness is really kind of one tool in the stress management toolkit. And I like this quote here, where your attention goes, energy flows. So I am going to ask my fellow panelists to launch one more poll here. And I have a question. On a daily basis, where is your thoughts, most of your thoughts on a daily basis focused? Are they focused on the past, the future, the present? I put in anywhere about the present in case you're just like a past and future thinker, or maybe you feel like you have a good mix of these 3 states on a daily basis. I'll know personally for me, I have always been a future thinker. I'm always thinking about what's coming next. I'm kind of able to let go of the past, which is fantastic, but I've found that my future focused thinking actually takes me away from the present quite a bit. So be honest, I would just like to know, are you more of a past, future, present thinker? For time purposes, I'll have my fellow panelists maybe get this up for 10 more seconds. And I just would like to see from our audience today, where are the majority of your daily thoughts focused? All right. Okay, a mix of these states. So it looks like about half of us, a mix of these states, some future thinkers. We have about 23% of people voting for the present moment, about half of those who said the mixed state. So this is actually wonderful. Yes, this is really great. Mindfulness is mostly focused on the present, but I'm going to kind of share how it can help with future thinking. And how it can help deal with managing stressors and anxieties from the past as well. So most of us tend to just focus on, or we don't focus as much of our attention on the present as we really could. So thank you for that. This graphic here just shows again that mindfulness is one piece of the stress management pie. So some different ways to practice mindfulness include meditation, breathing, certain forms of movement like yoga and journaling. We'll go into this definitely a little bit more in depth later on in our presentation, but I wanted to make this point that this is flexible. Depending on your stressor that day, or depending on your personal preference, mindfulness, the techniques that you use are going to be just one tool in your stress management toolkit. And you'll find that there are some days where mindfulness really helps, and other days when you need to do other forms of stress management. But the real benefits of having mindfulness in your little stress management pie or toolkit here is that mindfulness has been shown to be both relaxing and helping helping to alleviate anxiety and stress, but also it promotes mental clarity, concentration, and focus. So mindfulness isn't always Zen and just relax. It can really help with mental clarity and focus. So it can be really, really beneficial during your workday, for example, or when you have a big project to do. Now, the other forms of stress management might be more active solutions. So mindfulness is kind of about being a little bit more passive, I'll say, or a little bit more present and kind of just letting things be. But that does not mean that you're some complacent hippie when you practice mindfulness or that it's all YOLO and rainbows and butterflies. You will need active stress management strategies. Like, for example, if you're having trouble with a friend and you want to have a really honest, vulnerable conversation with them, you're going to need to practice being assertive. And you might need to problem solve and compromise. Or there might be times when you just want to escape into art, for example, that can be very therapeutic and a great way to manage stress. But I'm going to argue that mindfulness is really something that can be used in tandem, and it can help you become a better communicator, a better problem solver. And it can help you be more present and actually enjoy things like play and joyous activities more. So it's not meant to say like, we just meditate and I never have conversations and I'm never an active stress manager and problem solver. That's not necessarily the case here. Again, how you use mindfulness will change throughout your days, depending on your stressors. The last point that I wanted to make here with joyous activities. Joyous activities are anything that is pleasurable, that helps you escape from whatever is stressing you out. And as adults, I think that we can all benefit from having more play in our life, and that is important. Well, what happens when we chronically seek joyous or pleasurable activities? We're seeking euphoria. That leads to substance use issues. So there is plenty of research showing that mindfulness, at least having it as one of these tools in your stress management toolkit, can prevent procrastination, can prevent, again, seeking other addictions or things like substance use, for example. Now that we know some of the theoretical and maybe practical ways that mindfulness fits in, here's a little science for you. The basic reason that mindfulness works is that it impacts our nervous system. So our autonomic nervous system has two branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is our stress response. You can remember that because they both start with S. This is evolutionarily when our body would be prepared for a fight or to run away from a grizzly bear that's chasing us. Blood rushes away from our abdomen to our appendages to fight or run away from that bear. And this stress response is normal and okay from time to time. The alternative state is our parasympathetic nervous system. This is our relaxation response. This is where we rest and we digest our food. This is where our body heals. This is where we can access that peace and that calm. You can remember parasympathetic starts with a P, just like peace. The problem in our culture and our society today is that we spend way too much time in the sympathetic nervous system, and it causes heart disease and digestive concerns and weight gain and many other just mental health issues as well. So mindfulness can help us tap into parasympathetic. One more little snippet of bad news here is that these two states of our nervous system are like an on-off switch. We can't be a little bit sympathetic and a little bit parasympathetic. It is like an on-off switch for one or the other. So once we have a stressor, we can snap right into stressed out mode, and physiologically, that's what's happening with our body. Mindfulness, I hope, can be a tool to help you snap quickly back into that parasympathetic nervous system. And the absolute quickest, most efficient way to tap into the parasympathetic nervous response is with conscious, deep breathing. One form of mindfulness that we're going to go over today. One of the other reasons that mindfulness can really help with this stress response, preventing mental and physical stress, is because there is this strong connection between our mind and our body. And our brain is directly connected to our body, like our gut and our heart and our lungs, via something called the vagus nerve. Meditation and mindfulness and some of these practices really strengthen the tone of this vagus nerve. So you are helping yourself mentally and physically when you are practicing mindfulness. There we go. I got off my science soap box for a little bit now. So bam, picture of an ocean. We're practicing mindfulness now. I like this quote. You are the ocean, And stressors are like passing waves. So mindfulness is about being present, and it's about being non-judgmental. Think of your ocean as your thoughts, your feelings, your body, everything you're experiencing in life. And stressors are like these passing waves. If we can practice mindfulness, we let ourselves recognize those stressors and maybe even feel them for a moment without getting too wrapped up in them. However, how many of your oceans look like this from time to time? It's overwhelming. A lot of times stress can be overwhelming, and our safe haven of a dry shore can be overwhelmed by stress. Maybe your ocean at times looks like this, and you feel like those stressors are just knocking you out. Mindfulness is a practice, and I want you to take that literally. Mindfulness literally does take practice, and it's like a muscle that becomes stronger over time. The more that you practice mindfulness, the better and the more efficient you will become at being mindful. Now, why does mindfulness matter? I think I did touch on this a little bit. I'm hoping you're seeing how it matters. Of course it matters when it comes to stress management, but it also matters on a bigger scale. I want to relate this to our conference here today. Hope and Healing is about spreading a healthy community, of course, preventing substance use issues. And I want to argue for a second that we all have addictions. Now, my former substance use prevention employees are probably like, Trish, why are you using that word? It's no longer accepted. Was it a mistake bringing her on here today? Addictions, we can call these habitual behaviors. And of course, you might work with someone who has substance use issues, but we know addictions and habitual behaviors that can be problematic, can lead to things, other issues like gambling and other behaviors like social media addiction and food addiction and sugar addiction. That's something that I see a lot in my nutrition coaching practice as well. But there's one other form of addiction that is really common that we often look over, that many of us will find is a very habitual behavior for us. And it's not nicotine. Nicotine is very addictive, but this is one that I think might even be more present than nicotine addiction. If you have any guesses what it is, you can put it in the chat box right now. What other addiction or habitual behavior, let's say, do a lot of us struggle with on a daily basis? Caffeine. You're right, Carol. That's true. Coffee. A lot of people are saying this. All right, I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with food. It's not an actual drug. It's not an actual drug like caffeine, technology. Sure, Christine. Yum. Worry. Kim Earl. Hi, Kim. Busy. Lisa. Yes. Yes. We're getting there. To chaos. Schedules. Hi. Adrenaline. Yes. Okay. All of what you said, we can sum up. Alexander stress. Yes. Is mental noise. Mental noise is an addiction. And you know what, Victoria, snacking, absolutely get that as well. You know what, if I'm ever invited back to do a nutrition talk, I would love to. But let's talk about mental noise for today. Mental noise is a lot of what has been said here in our chat, like addictions to our schedules and technology. So the constant need for stimulation. In our culture and society today, a lot of us need this distraction constantly from our phones, from social media. How many of you take your phone to the bathroom? How many of you are future thinkers and you constantly need kind of that mental noise of planning what's next and rehearsing what's next, right? How many of you have that mental noise that's focused on the past and you're constantly replaying and ruminating on something that happened maybe recently, maybe 5 years ago, like, oh my gosh, that stupid thing that I did in 11th grade, never gonna live it down. No one else is thinking about that but you. And a lot of us use this sort of mental noise as a coping mechanism or a way of comforting ourselves, because sometimes it can be hard to live in the present, especially during changing times. Like over this past year, I was actually thinking it's unbelievable that Hope and Healing was already over a year ago from last year, because it seems so recent in my mind. But a lot of times we use this mental noise, and mindfulness can help with this. One of the biggest questions that contributes to anxiety is the question, what if? What if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, what if that happens again? What if this, what if that? And that is really a form of mental noise. Not saying here that you're never going to have any mental noise, but we want to be able to shut our brain off at the end of the day. We want to be able to come to a state of better mental clarity, and mindfulness can help with that. All right. I said that I would share with you my little acronym here, PAC, with 3 different ways to be mindful, or 3 components of mindfulness, let's say, that can help you be more mindful. And the first one is presence, because at least if we're going to have mental noise, it might as well be in the only time that we can change or control, which is the now. So many of us, again, are focused on the present and the future, or the past and the future. Mindfulness helps us be present with the now. You're not going to shut off all this mental noise. I'll give you a technique on how to work with this mental noise, actually. But presence is one of the first main components that you can remember when it comes to mindfulness. The second one is acceptance, because there are things in life that we cannot control. There are things in life that we will not be able to control. And a lot of us, especially if you work in the field of human services or you're a helper, you probably have a tendency to want to control things and change things. And there are some things that we just can't. And the practice of acceptance helps with patience, helps prevent and manage some of the stress and anxiety that comes with this sort of work. So acceptance is a hugely helpful component of mindfulness. The last one is curiosity, because if you're going to have a noisy mind, it might as well not be judgmental, but more imaginative and curious. Our judgments about things are usually what cause us the most stress. I'll say that again. Our judgment about things as good or bad are usually what cause us the most stress in a specific situation. So mindfulness can teach us to be a little bit more curious and kind of take a step back from a third party type view, rather than being very judgmental about that mental noise or whatever stressor is popping up in our life. Now, if you have a cat, put it in the chat box. I have a cat, and I put a cat up here because I do think cats are really good at being mindful. I was talking with a fellow cat owner and she was like, I just love the way that they can meditate in like the middle of a room. And like, if it is their time to meditate or nap, like nobody is going to be stopping that. There could be noise going on, clapping, kids screaming, and the cat just is sitting there, their eyes closed, meditating. Cats are great meditators, and they're also curious. I recently got a cat and realized that every single stereotype about cats are true. Like curiosity killed the cat. My cat is so curious. So I think that there are things that we can learn from cats, but I'm also bringing this up because if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm a controller, it's hard for me to be present, isn't planning for the future good, I just challenge you to challenge your own assumptions for a moment about what it means to be mindful, or challenge your assumption about whether or not you can do this thing or whether or not you can be a mindful person, because it's a practice and you can. And I have this picture up here is my kitten Smiles, who I adopted back in September. And she forced me to challenge my own assumptions because, a little story about me, I'm the biggest dog person in the world. Grew up the biggest dog person. I was like, dogs rule, cats drool growing up. And it was over time that I'm like, well, maybe cats aren't that bad. I wasn't really exposed to cats. I never really played with cats when I was younger. The few cats I knew were really like skittish and standoffish and not very playful or friendly. So I was assuming that cats were like that. You might have assumptions similarly about meditation or mindfulness practices. When I got my cat, I realized now she might be unique because she was a little barn cat. I got her at like 5 weeks old. But she is just about the most rambunctious puppy I've ever seen. Like, she's very playful. She's very curious. She's very energetic. All the stereotypes about cats I had to throw out the window because I realized that she wasn't really what I thought. And now you can just call me crazy cat lady. I love my cat so much. This is back when she was maybe 2 months old, and she is very, very precious. I do know. I will take compliments about my cat in the chat box. Moving on though. Okay. One of the ways that we can challenge our assumptions about things is with mindset or perspective shifts. So I'm going to be placing some of these quotes here within our presentation. And this one I love. Worries and tensions are like birds. We cannot stop them from flying near us, but we can certainly stop them from making a nest within our mind. This is a good quote to kind of exemplify PAC, presence, acceptance, and curiosity. And I like this one as well. Worry is as useless as a handle on a snowball. You might be saying, Trish, don't even show me a picture of snow right now. It's finally summer. That's okay. But this one really stuck with me when I heard this. I always remember it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm worrying about something that I can't control right now. That's like putting a handle on a snowball. It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. And it really doesn't serve a purpose. So sometimes rumination and overthought and mental noise don't serve a purpose. And that's where mindfulness comes into play. Now, just saying, I'm going to worry less and I'm going to be mindful is easier said than done. So here are 7 different ways to be mindful. The first one is to spend time in nature. Nature in and of itself, being in nature, walking in nature, just noticing nature, breathing outside in nature can be a really fantastic and beautiful mindfulness practice. And I really love this word, ulasa. Ulasa is a Sanskrit term coming from Hinduism, talking about the pleasantness associated with natural beauty or being outside in nature. So every time you're in nature, you can remember this beautiful word, ulasa, and think about just noticing the temperature outside, the leaves, the sound of the birds. There's many different things that we can tap into and be mindful while out in nature, while walking, while noticing the texture of the soil beneath our feet. And I like mindfulness in nature because it also reminds us that there are many things in nature that we cannot control. Humans, I think we've tried to control nature, but there are things like weather that are always going to be out of our control, and we can judge it all we want, but it doesn't always help and it doesn't change it, right? So if we remember weather not being changeable, it can be a way that nature reminds us to be mindful. So spending time in nature. And as I'm talking about these different forms of mindfulness, if you have questions or thoughts, please put them in the chat box. If you kind of have something to go off of what I'm saying, like another way that you practice mindfulness in this way, definitely let me know. I would love to hear from you. The next way to practice mindfulness is to meditate. A lot of us think of this right away. A lot of us think that mindfulness is synonymous with meditation, but I'm hoping you're finding that mindfulness is a form of meditation, or meditation is a form of mindfulness, and it's just one of those tools in the toolkit. I am going to have my panelists, my fellow panelists, friends, launch another poll. I believe it's my 3rd poll on meditation. Have you meditated before? I just want to hear from you all in the audience, the participants. Have you meditated before? No? Yes, a couple times here and there. Maybe you meditate or you turn to it mostly when you are stressed, so a few times a week or a few times a month. That's fantastic. And if you meditate almost daily or a daily meditator, let me know. I'd love to hear our experience with meditation before we practice some. So thank you so much. We'll give this about 5 more seconds and just see if we can see the vast majority I would like to see or hear about your meditation experience. Awesome. Okay, so it looks like the majority of us, a little over half, have tried meditation a few times. Some are meditators when they're stressed, some are daily meditators, and then a couple have never tried this before. So this is a wonderful mix. I love it. Okay, we are going to practice a couple different forms of meditation, and feel free, of course, you already have your screens off, to meditate in whatever way feels comfortable for you. We're going to practice a meditation in just a moment, but I want you to know that you do not have to meditate cross-legged on the floor. You do not have to have your peace fingers like this, and you do not have to say Om. That is one form of yogic meditation, but that is not the only way to meditate. Feel free to sit in your chair if you're at your desk. If you're in a space, if you are at home, you can take the laptop over to the couch. I personally mostly like to lie down when I meditate because I find that it helps my body relax. So there's absolutely no specific way that your body needs to be while we're meditating. I just want to make that disclaimer. So there are different types of meditation: guided meditation, meditations with music and sound, moving meditations like yoga and Pilates, or any form of exercise or movement that you're doing, even walking, can be meditative if you link it to your breath. Meditation is basically linking your breath while practicing these components of mindfulness. So kind of being present, bringing it back to your breath, and maybe it's focusing on a guide. So I will guide you through a couple of meditations today. And then there's mindful meditations, which are really just practicing mindfulness, just being. I'll give you a couple tips on how to practice mindful meditation if you're a beginner in a way that feels good. And know that you can always use and access these different types of meditations. There are so many meditation apps and meditations on YouTube, but I want to show you a very simple one. And I'm seeing on my screen, let me know if you can or cannot see this. There's supposed to be a graphic here on the 5-5-7 breath, but I'm seeing on my screen, it looks like it's just blank. And basically I can share with you the 5-5 meditation. Okay, it is blank, interesting. All right, well, you know what I'm gonna invite you to do, if you feel comfortable, is close your eyes anyway. We're gonna practice the 5-5-7 breath, which is something that you can do in a very short period of time, absolutely anywhere. And as you're sitting here, just take a couple of deep breaths in a very natural way for you. So breathe in through your nose, out of your mouth. And just take a couple of deep breaths in whatever time feels good. And then I'll start to count us in. And counting can be a great way to practice mindful meditation. So empty out all of your breath. And on the next inhale, we're going to inhale for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to pause for 5, 3, 2, 1. Then you're going to exhale for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 5. Pause at the top of your breath and just hold for a count of 5. And then you're going to exhale for a count of 7. And what's wonderful about this meditation is if you do this about 10 times, about 10 deep breaths in the 5-5-7 counting pattern, it only takes about 2 minutes. 10 5-5-7 breaths only take about 2 minutes. Most of us can spare 2 minutes throughout our day. It's a really quick and simple way to activate this parasympathetic nervous system. So with this 5-5-7 breath, the reason it's helpful and beneficial is because your exhale is a little bit longer than your inhale. When you can exhale for longer, it actually triggers that parasympathetic nervous system right away. So puts you in that relaxed rest and digest state. That's one way to do it. I find sometimes 5 and 7 is a little bit long. So if you're finding you restraining, another form that I like is 4 square breath. So you hold in, or you breathe in for 4, you hold for a count of 4, you exhale for 4, then you pause before taking your next breath for 4. And that is another trigger to our nervous system to relax when you can sit in those pauses. But just know that you don't always have to practice meditation with counting. There are plenty of guided meditations. You can have a guide that counts for you. You can just have music in the background, but sometimes counting can really help. Now, another form, and I'm noticing my graphics all of a sudden are disappearing, which they're not that important anyway. This was just a peaceful picture of a branch. You can visualize it. We're going to practice non-reactivity next. Non-reactivity is helpful because when you're meditating and you're trying to focus on your breath, you're trying to focus on your counting, there are things that will likely pop up, like bodily sensations, like itches or aches and pains. You might realize you're meditating and you're like, I have never been more aware of my body than I am now. And you're fidgety. There could be sounds within your environment. There's construction outside of my window right now, and I'm not sure if you can hear it, but for me, if I'm meditating, there are going to be sounds and things that we're hearing. There's going to be thoughts that pop in our brain and emotions. And non-reactivity is the practice of approaching those in the present moment, kind of accepting them and not judging them. So this is a great way to practice that presence, acceptance, and curiosity when it comes to mindfulness. So in whatever position you're in, or you were for our very brief last meditation, I'd like to guide you through a non-reactivity meditation now. It's going to be quite short. We'll do this for about a minute for time purposes. And I just want you to take note of your body sensation and your sounds. We're going to keep it simple. We're not going to worry about thoughts or emotions just yet, but I'm going to guide you to actually take note of this mental noise when it comes to your body sensation and the sounds around you without judging them. So whatever position feels good, you can just close your eyes again. You might take a deep breath in, and on your exhale, close your eyes to elicit relaxation. And just breathe in whatever way feels good for you. You might just take slow, deep breaths and not count. You might count, and that's okay. Just practice breathing in through your nose and out of your mouth. That form of breathing can help elicit that relaxation response. And now I want you to just notice what you're feeling in your head, on your scalp, on your face, around your ears and the back of your head. And just notice if you're experiencing any tingling, any warming sensation, any sort of itch. And slowly move down to your torso. And again, notice any sensations without judging them as good or bad. If your back is a bit sore, just see if you can breathe and notice that soreness and that feeling without judging it. Notice any sensations in your arms, down to your palms, and your fingertips. And again, notice any buzzing, warming sensation. And keep going down the rest of your body, your legs, down to your feet and even your toes. And see if you can notice these sensations. And see if you can approach it with curiosity. Yeah, that's interesting that I'm tingly all of a sudden, now that I'm thinking about it. Or it's interesting that I am sore because I didn't even notice I was sore before. Just see what you can notice. And now see if we can switch your attention for a second. And now notice any sounds around you. Of course, you can tune into the sound of my voice guiding you on this meditation. The sounds within the room. And again, try not to judge, but just notice. Just notice. And when you're ready, take one final breath and just exhale with an audible sigh, like so. And you can open your eyes and return to the room and return to our presentation here today. And I'd love to hear from you in the chat box how this was for you, what came up, if it was easy, if it was simple, if it was calming, if it was not. There's no right or wrong answer here, but I'd love to hear. You can place that right in the chat box. For time purposes, I will move on. And I just want to share this quote or this perspective with you. We've already talked about the symbolism of the ocean, and the ocean doesn't complain about the dance of 10 million waves. So don't be concerned with the rise and fall of thoughts. A lot of times we judge our thoughts. And I share this because you can practice that non-reactivity the next time you're trying to meditate without judging your thoughts. This one is tough. I think it's really tough to not judge our thoughts, but this is something that really is really impactful. So thank you. Oh, thank you, Brady and Anastasia and Daniel. Nice, love it. Awesome. Another term that I love is an Icelandic term, glucovator, and it means window weather. And it's the weather that's like perfect to watch from a distance, but terrible to be out in. So it's like the weather that you just want to cuddle up with maybe a warm beverage on your cozy couch, watching a thunderstorm outside. This weather. And this is really a good symbol of what mindfulness can do for us. It is possible to notice our sensations and notice our thoughts and our feelings without judging them or without getting wrapped up in that stress storm. It is possible to not get wrapped up in that stress storm. And I'm happy to hear that some of you have found this beneficial because I found since practicing this, you can take this and carry it into other days of other ways in other parts of your life or your day. Like for example, I've noticed if I can practice mindfulness, I'm not freaking out every time I have an itch, right? How many of you itch and you're like, oh no, I have a scratch, and you got to scratch it right away. Mindfulness can just help you slow down in that way and really alleviate that sort of tension that we can sometimes carry. So of course we can practice meditation, but another way to be mindful is to just notice color, texture, and sensation around you. So we're going to do a quick 30-second, for time purposes here, hand gazing experience. So I want you to look down at your hand and I want you to notice the color of your hand. Notice if you can see any sort of veins, the sensations of that, the color of the blood running through your hand. Notice the different textures. Maybe it's smooth. Maybe you have a dry skin patch. You can move your hand around a little bit and notice the feelings. If you had lotion or you recently washed your hands, you can even smell your hand. But this is a great, simple practice. If you are at the doctor's office and you're nervous about your appointment or a job interview or a conversation with your friend, is to gaze down at your hand and to practice mindfulness. Practice to kind of being present, aware, and noticing those sensations. You can also do this. It's fantastic practice to do this while you're washing your hands, while you're cooking, or you're moving throughout your day. You can just practice noticing. So that's our fourth technique. Now we're running out of time, so I'll breathe through these last ones pretty quickly, but I do believe you have access to these slides. And one of my favorite ones as a health and nutrition coach is the mindful meal. So often we rush through our meals super duper duper quickly, and we don't actually eat sensually. Now, I'm not talking about sexual eating, but sensual eating. This is with your taste buds, your olfactory bulbs. You're noticing, you're looking at the colors on your plate, and you're appreciating your food. You're smelling it. You're picking out every single flavor. You're slowing down by actually chewing your food, putting your utensils down, and dragging your meal out just a little bit, 20 minutes. A lot of this is basic dinner etiquette that we've learned from our mother, but so many of us rush through this. And I'll just put a disclaimer that I talk a ton about mindful eating in my practices, on my social media page, on my podcast, which I'll put a plug in for the end. But know that you can practice mindfulness. A lot of times during your meal, a lot of times we say like, I can't eat healthy and I can't be mindful and I can't manage my stress. Well, you can put it all in one and have a mindful meal. The next one is automatic writing. So I love this. It's a way of journaling without even necessarily needing any sort of prompts. It's just writing whatever comes to mind, whatever comes to mind. Set a timer for a few minutes, put your pen to the page and just see whatever comes to mind. There are certain digital apps called, one is Day One, and it's blue with a little white tab on it. And I love that because that's right on the phone and you can put a passcode. So if anybody goes through your phone, nobody will see what you're writing, but it's a very therapeutic and cathartic way to just notice what's present for you in your mind and put it out on paper. So automatic writing is our next tip. The next one is mindful movement. I think a lot of us have heard of yoga, Pilates, walking, even things maybe like Tai Chi and Qigong. These are different practices that incorporate breath and really kind of feeling and noticing your body. For time purposes, we won't do this, but I encourage you, homework assignment is to do a little bit of mindful movement today. And this can be as simple as sitting at your desk During our lunch break here, you can practice your mindful meal coming up next. I won't give you too much longer, I promise. And you can practice some simple stretches, moving your head back and forth, rolling your wrists. And yes, Lisa, the app was Day One. It is called Day One. It's blue. You can find it on probably Android and Apple. And I love that for writing. It's a journaling app. Okay. The last one is just a mindful minute. So anytime you need a reload or refresh, you can practice a mindful minute. Set a timer for 1 minute. This is a beautiful graphic that you can look up, you can Google. Little deep breathing triangle is what I call it. And you can breathe, and just for 1 minute, maybe you do some hand gazing, maybe you move around, but you practice being present, accepting, and curious of the moment. Oh, thank you for finding that, Alex. I appreciate it. I will sum up right here with this last slide. Anything you're struggling with is not a problem, but a portal for your transformation. This is a health coach and life coach in one of my trainings that I really look up to. And I wanted to leave it with this because mindfulness can sometimes bring up a lot, can bring up anxieties and stress and worry. And it is a practice like any other. But if you're struggling with overthought, or you're struggling with tension as you practice mindfulness, or a lot of emotion is coming up and you're seeing some patterns, it's almost like you can approach it like, no problem. Wow, I've actually found what is maybe causing me the most stress, and it's thinking so much about the future. That is what is going to be the biggest needle mover, likely for your mental and physical and emotional wellness. So really, don't approach those problems or those struggles with more stress. Mindfulness can teach you, can kind of be that compass pointing you on your way. All right, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. Here's my contact information. I appreciate all the participation. I want to give a huge thank you to Hope Chautauqua and Prevention Works for having me back. Feel free to check out my group on Facebook, my Instagram page, and Ice Cream You Scream, a health and wellness podcast. I do co-facilitate or co-host that with my friend and former colleague, Alexander Rodriguez, who is moderating today. And we have an episode on mindful eating, and we have an episode on a lot of these topics. So if you're interested, please do subscribe and share. I will open it up now. I'm not sure if we have plenty of time or any time really for questions or comments. I see that we have a poll up here, but I just want to say thank you again to you all. I've had a wonderful time. Awesome. And I will turn it over to our other panelists.